Welcome back. Now, May 31st was World No Tobacco Day. And so, in order to commemorate that occasion, I'm dedicating the rest of this show to tobacco. In many countries in the world, smoking in public places has now been seriously curtailed. Tobacco advertising is minimal and cigarettes are heavily taxed, all in an effort to keep people from lighting up. Some may consider today's tobacco laws, well, draconian, but in fact they're nothing compared to what we've seen in the past.
In the early 1600s, the Pope declared that tobacco users must be excommunicated. It didn't work, and just a few decades later, a tobacco-using Pope reversed the ruling. In 1633 in Turkey, Sultan Murad IV ordered tobacco users executed as infidels. As many as 18 a day were executed. The order was rescinded 10 years later by Murad's successor, himself a smoker. In 1634, in Russia, Tsar Alexis creates penalties for smoking. First offense is whipping, a slit nose, and transportation to Siberia. Second offense is execution. Once again, the penalties are lifted when the rulers themselves start puffing away.
But despite the clear evidence that people will continue to smoke even if you cut off their nose and send them to Siberia, tobacco companies always want to make a few million more bucks, and have thus resorted to some really creative and sometimes really devious ways to get people to smoke. So let's take a look at some of my favorites from the world of cigarette advertising. First, the health angle.
In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
But perhaps you're the kind of person who needs some hard data to convince you. Well, here you go.
A group of people smoked only Chesterfields for 6 months in their normal amount, 10 to 40 a day. 45% of the group have smoked Chesterfields from 1 to 30 years for an average of 10 years each. At the beginning and end of the 6 months period, each smoker was given a thorough examination, including x-rays. The examination covered the sinuses, nose, ears, and throat. After a thorough examination of every member of the group, the medical specialist stated, "It is my opinion that the ears, nose, throat, and accessory organs of all participating subjects examined by me were not adversely affected in the 6 months period by smoking the cigarettes provided." Remember this report and buy Chesterfields, regular or king size.
But the direct approach doesn't work on everyone, and sometimes you need a more subtle message, like in this print ad. That's right, the world's most famous cigarette brand was marketed as a mommy stress reliever. This baby actually asks his mum to have a cigarette instead of scolding him, brilliantly playing up the women as hysterical stereotype. The dad version plays to more common aspirational cues, basically saying, "You're not a super dad unless you smoke Marlboros." But by now, any children watching may be feeling a little exploited. I mean, after all, kids are consumers too. Well, don't worry, children. Big Tobacco is watching you.
Gee, we ought to do something, Fred. Okay? How's about taking a nap? Hey, I got a better idea. Let's take a Winston break. That's it! Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend. Yeah, Fred. Filter blend makes the big taste difference, and only Winston has it up front where it counts. Here, ahead of the pure white filter. Winston packs rich tobaccos specially selected and specially processed for good flavor in filter smoking. Yeah, Barney, Winston tastes good, like a cigarette. Sure.
The Flintstones have been brought to you by Winston,
America's best-selling, best-tasting filter cigarette.
It tastes good like a cigarette should.
And no, that wasn't doctored or in any way altered. That's a genuine ad from back when Winston Cigarettes was the main sponsor for the Flintstones. But that was back when no one knew for sure that smoking was hazardous to your health. And after all, Fred and Barney are both working men, and when your doctor himself is smoking Camels, what's the problem? But years on, no company would actually persist in marketing cigarettes to children, or would they?
Enter Joe Camel, a cartoon character used as a mascot for Camel cigarettes. In 1991, the Journal of the American Medical Association published a study showing that more children 5 and 6 years old could recognize Joe Camel than could recognize Mickey Mouse or Fred Flintstone, and alleged that the Joe Camel campaign was supposedly targeting children. R.J. Reynolds responded saying that Snoopy sells life insurance and the Pink Panther pitches fiberglass insulation, but no one assumes that these products are marketed at children. Despite the rhetoric, internal documents obtained by court order showed that as far back as 1974, the company wrote, "The young adult market represents tomorrow's cigarette business. As this 14 to 24 age group matures, they will account for a key share of the total cigarette volume for at least the next 25 years. Finally, under pressure from the public and the courts, Joe was retired in 1997.
Okay, but you can't really blame a multi-billion-dollar company for wanting to make a couple million bucks. I mean, at least they're not telling outright lies. Or are they? In 1994, ads marketing Dave's cigarettes started appearing on billboards. Dave was billed as an independent farmer sick of fast-burning, fake-tasting cigarettes. And so, armed only with a tractor, a few tobacco seeds and a dream, he set out to make different cigarettes for real people. The only problem is, Dave wasn't real. The character was the brainchild of Philip Morris's marketing division. Was it deception? Well, Philip Morris argues that he was just another fictional character in the mold of Betty Crocker and Aunt Jemima. The idea, according to them, was the underdog takes on the establishment, even though this underdog was created by the establishment. And that brings us to the end of the show for this week. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, hate mail, you can write at cs@dawnnews.tv. Well, until next week, I'm Zarar Khoro, and you've been watching Come to Spin.